All right, guys, here it is, the final video and the final lesson from Mr. Morris for senior year. Some of you are cheering right now and probably excited about that. A few of you maybe have a little more mixed feelings about it. I know it's very, very bittersweet for me. I hate that my last lesson for you guys has to be delivered via an internet, really crappy video of me rambling. But, that being said, I'm glad I could share these with you, and I hope that you've gotten something out of it. I hope this just hasn't been a chore and a hurdle for you to clear. I hope there's been something that you could take from this work, because what's the point in learning something if it's just to memorize and forget? So we really want to, look at some things that make us think, and that's what this last poem is these last four poems have really been about. All right, so let's look at our final poem. It's called When I Was 1 and 20. We're still dealing with A.E. Housman. By the way, hopefully you don't need this direction, but when I was 1 and 20, he's talking about when he was 21. All right. I know it's said differently, but this is poetry. Everything's flipped around and crazy. All right. So let's read the whole thing again. Then we're going to look at each stanza individually. There's only two stanzas, so don't panic. It says, When I was 1 and 20, I heard a wise man say, Give crowns and pounds and guineas, but not your heart away. Give pearls away and rubies, but keep your fancy free. But I was 1 and 20, no use to talk to me. When I was 1 and 20, I heard him say again, The heart out of the bosom was never given in vain. 'Tis paid with sighs of plenty and sold for endless rue. And I am 2 and 20, and oh, 'tis true, 'tis true. Okay. And so the first thing I noticed when I read this is it's got a really bouncy rhythm, which I think makes poems great. I laughed. I was reading a book about, from a poetry critic the other day, and yeah, I know that's really nerdy. But I was reading it, and he was talking about how he felt that poems like this, may be clever, but they're just not good because of the rhyming and the rhythm, and it just makes it seem very hokey. And the fact is I disagree 100%. And who am I? I'm a high school teacher, and he's a poetry critic. But the fact is that we're both just having opinions, and honestly, they weigh the same. They're just the way we feel. I think this is better than some, free verse ramblings. All right, so some of those are good too, but I feel like this is just so much more powerful because of how it's set up. So let's look at the first stanza. He's talking about when he's 21, he gets some advice from a wise man. This guy tells him basically, now when he says crowns and pounds and guineas, he's talking about money. Remember, this is British, and that's British money. And he's saying, give away your money, give away your riches, but what should you not give away? He's saying, don't give your heart away. Not when you're young. He says, keep your fancy free. In other words, don't get wrapped up in the type of relationship that could end in heartbreak and really could derail your future. But he points out something great. And this is why I ended on this poem, to be honest with you. I knew this was going to be the last one I did. He says, but I was 1 and 20, no use to talk to me. Now, most of you right now, none of you right now are 21, but you're at the age where that's the case. You have lots of wise people right now speaking into your life and telling you things that are important. And you act like they don't know anything, and you're going to ignore that advice. And like he says, I was 1 and 20. There's no use to talk to me. That's kind of you guys. You're 18 and there's no use to talk to you about some of this stuff. You're convinced that you're going to be different. Your situation's different. You're more mature than your parents were, whatever. Your world's so much different and blah, blah, blah. And the fact is that you're going to look back on some of this advice your parents gave you or someone else gave you, and you're going to be like, if only I had listened, my life would be so different. Now, I don't fully agree with the statement here. I think there's nothing wrong, especially at 21, with, finding someone you love and giving your heart away. I mean, but you have to realize there are consequences for it. You got to think about, if some of you right now have been through bad breakups and how much it impacted your life, it gets worse the older you get. Okay, because so much more of your life may be poured into that person, and it can derail you. Think about you starting a new career. You've been dating a girl for 4 or 5 years, or guy, depending on who's watching this, and you break up, and this person's been your whole world, and then you go through this depression like you did. Some of you would cry in class over losing your boyfriend or girlfriend you had for 2 weeks, and you couldn't function on your homework. You couldn't function on any of that. Well, when you get a job and you can't function on your job, there's not going to be Mr. Morris there to give you extra time or to say, hey, look, don't worry about it. I know you're upset. Most of your bosses aren't going to do that. There's a job to be done. You better pull it off. Your college professors, they're not going to give you a pass because your girlfriend dumped you. So, the advice this guy's getting is not bad. He's like, hey, be a person of generosity, but protect yourself. Protect your heart is what he's saying. And the guy's like, yeah, but I didn't listen to him. Second stanza, he says, when I was 1 and 20, I heard him say again, the heart out of the bosom was never given in vain. 'Tis paid with sighs of plenty and sold for endless rue. Uh, so he's talking about, there's a cost when you do this. And he says it's paid. How's it paid? With sighs of plenty. Think about how that, you have friends that do that because they want you to ask what's going on. It's that kind of thing. But then the other one, and I ask you in your questions about this, is sold for endless rue. We learned what rue was in the Thomas Hardy poems. Rue is a plant or flower, I'm not sure which. A flower is a plant, so let's just say a plant that symbolizes regret, and he says it's sold for endless rue. Guys, if you've been through a relationship and broken up, you can say I don't regret anything, but the fact is that more than likely you regret some things about it. Some of you may regret ever getting involved. Tell you what, every ex I've ever had, I regret everything about being involved with that person. Not because it was a bad relationship, but it was a waste of my time. I think back to all the girls I've dated and the money I spent and the time I invested, and for it to end up the way it did, it just wasn't a good trade-off. Now, obviously, meeting my wife has been worth it. And if we were to split up, heaven forbid, I would not say the same thing about her. But all of my relationships through high school and college, I definitely would say that. But here's the key, the last two lines. This is what kind of makes the poem great, is he says, I am 2 and 20, and oh, 'tis true, 'tis true. So he's pointing out, now it's a year later, and he's learned this guy was right. I'm 2 and 20. So years passed within the poem. He says, yeah, this guy knew what he was talking about. It's a poem about maturity. He's got this separation. And you know what? A lot of us would separate at the exact same place that Hausman here in the late early 1900s would separate things. 21, I'm a kid. 22, I'm an adult. That sort of thing. And he's pointing out that he has learned his lesson. And so the point of this is for all of us is that we can read stuff like this and realize that the people around us are wise and they've been where we are. And we can still ignore them and then find out later, if only I had listened. I mean, that's going to be a phrase you utter a lot into your 20s and 30s. And man, still in my 40s, I still find myself saying, if only I had listened about a lot of things. So as we close the year, and as I give you my last little bit of advice here as we finish this poem, I want you to think about this concept of listening to those around you. I want you to do that because if I had listened to my mom and I had listened to, my uncle and to my grandparents and to my teachers, there's so much of the mistakes I've made in life that I probably wouldn't have made. And we can try to comfort ourselves by saying, well, those helped make you who you are today. And that's true. But I could be better than I am today if I had learned those things. I mean, I think about things like buying my first house and not listening to the warnings that anyone gave me. And I bought a house that, while I love that I have my own house and that but it's got so many problems that I didn't even think about. And if I had just spoken to some people and listened to what they said, maybe I would have not made this ridiculous choice that I have that's going to end up costing me, years of my life and tons of money. If I could think about, going back to college and some of the advice I got about my career, things, I could have made some progress where, I could have my master's degree now, maybe even my doctorate degree now, instead of still be sitting here with a bachelor's and being looked down on by, plenty of people because I don't have an advanced degree. So there's a lot of things that I wish I had listened to people with. And I want you, as you're going into these next few months of your life, you're going to get a lot of advice. And I want you to actually listen. Stop ignoring it. Stop thinking that old people don't know what they're talking about. The world's different. The world's not as different as you think it is. Parts of it are. The technology is different, but people are the same. One of the things you were supposed to learn from these lessons that we've had is that we're no different from people from the 1500s. We have better toys and we have better ways to kill each other. But really, in all honesty, the things we go through, the hurts, the joys, they're not different. So when you can listen to your parents, your grandparents, your uncles, your teachers, and we know a lot about things that you could pitfalls, there we go, pitfalls you can avoid. And listening, not just listening and saying whatever, old people, and moving on and thinking that you've got so much wisdom at the ripe old age of 18. Stop doing that. Listen, make some adjustments. Stop thinking that because you want something that makes it the right thing. We do have wisdom to give you, and that's something that you should, crave, not something you should throw away. All right. So as you get prepared for the next steps of your life, listen to the voices of wisdom in your life. And apply what they say. Now, not everything that's told to you will be something that you want to apply, but really think about it and apply the things that make sense, and stop just doing what you want and that's it. I mean, that's why some of you have a 15 in my class right now. You've decided to do what you want And now you're catching yourself up against a wall and realizing there's a consequence for it. When wisdom would have been to listen to what I told you when we went on this quarantine, which was don't get behind, sit down, set a schedule, do the things that need to be done first, stretch out the other things and make sure and try to eliminate everything you can as quick as you can, because then the time you have for free time is a lot more free. Because some of you are staring down a pretty big hurdle right now for graduation because of not listening to the advice that people have given you. So anyway, it's been a pleasure teaching each and every one of you. I'm going to miss you all immensely. This isn't the way I wanted things to end, but just so that you know, it's not an ending. Okay? You guys are moving on to something else, but most of you are going to be close by. Some of you will still be here for years, and I want you to know that my door is always open. I would love to spend time with each of you and just talk to you about life and maybe give you some advice that you can maybe listen to or ignore. I don't know everything. My wisdom is pretty low, to be honest with you, but I'd love to share anything I can with each and every one of you and let you know that you're always welcome back at in my classroom. Or if you just want to go grab a cup of coffee somewhere, I would love to be able to have that type of relationship with each of you now that we have moved past the student and teacher relationship and hopefully into a relationship that's more about being friends. So, goodbye, class of 2020. I'm going to miss each of you, and I love you all more than you know, and so does every teacher at our school. So, all right, guys, this is me signing off for the last time. I will see some of you for your graduation events, and the rest of you I hope to see again very soon.